The novel now turns to Jonathan's fiancée Wilhelmina Murray and her childhood friend Lucy Westenra. Lucy writes a letter to Minna that she has been proposed by three gentlemen, Dr. John Seward, Mr. Quincy P. Morris, and Mr. Arthur Holmwood, whom Lucy is already in love with. She denies politely the other two proposals. Dr. John Seward, who is extremely hurt with the denial from Lucy, throws himself to work, which seems for him the only way to get out of the empty feeling. He picks out among his patients R.M. Renfield, 59, age, to study. Renfield is a kind of dangerous patient with a strange hobby of collecting even stranger pets like flies and spiders. Each time he tries a new pet, he kills the old ones. Wilhelmina's friend Lucy has developed a habit of sleepwalking, and one night Mina catches her outside with some tall black sort of thing bent on her. When Mina reaches closer, the strange black thing is gone and Lucy is found sitting alone, still in sleep. She has 2 red spots on her throat and blood spot on her dress. After that incident, Lucy goes weaker in her health. Dr. Seward's patient Renfield one day asks him for a cat. Dr. Seward refuses to get him cat and Renfield becomes aggressive. The same night, he is found absconding. The watchman tells Doctor that Renfield had eaten all his birds raw and that he saw a glimpse of Renfield going towards the left, reaching the window. Dr. Seward follows him and finds him going to Carfax, the building to be purchased by Dracula. Dr. Seward watches Renfield talking to someone inside, addressing the person as his master. Meanwhile, Wilhelmina receives a letter from Sister Agatha, Hospital of St. Joseph and St. Mary, Budapest, notifying that Jonathan Harker is admitted in their hospital, and since he is not in a condition to write to her, Sister Agatha is writing on his behalf. Jonathan is admitted there for 6 weeks, suffering from a violent brain fever. Mina rushes to meet Jonathan, who has gone pale and weak. When he sees Mina, he wishes to tell her what has happened in the past months, but is too afraid to even go back to the dreadful thoughts. He somehow manages to give her his diary, saying whatever has happened to him, all is mentioned in that. He asks Mina to marry him. Both gets married in the church of the hospital, and Mina seals the book, promising Jonathan that she would never open the book unless it is for Jonathan's sake. Lucy's fiancé, Mr. Arthur, writes a letter to Dr. Seward, who is a friend of him, about Lucy's condition. In his letter, he writes that she is ill and getting worse every day, looking awful, but she has no specific disease. When Dr. Seward examines her, he finds her in a vigorous state of health with no physical problems except that she has lost a good amount of blood from her body, but she is not anemic, and comes to a conclusion that the problem might be something mental. He then informs Arthur the same and calls his old friend and master, Professor Van Helsing of Amsterdam, to examine Lucy. Professor Van Helsing is a philosopher and a metaphysician and one of the most advanced scientists of his days. He visits Lucy and examines her, talks to her, and finds out the same results as great amount of blood loss with no anemic condition, but he knows something serious has happened and tells Dr. Seward that he needs time to come to a conclusion and that Lucy should be kept under observation. Dr. Seward informs the same to Arthur, who had gone to his father, who is seriously ill. Dr. Seward's patient Renfield has been violent for 2 weeks after he had been caught from Carfax, but is found in a strangely calm position when moon arises till dawn. He remains violent in the daytime. This makes Dr. Seward think that something strange is happening. Again, one day, Renfield escapes from the hospital and is found in the same old chapel of Carfax building. When Dr. Seward goes near Renfield, He becomes extremely violent that if the attendants of the hospital have not got hold of him, he would have killed the doctor. Suddenly, a strange thing happens. Violent Renfield all of a sudden becomes calm. Dr. Seward checks for the cause looking around but is not able to find anything. When he looks in the direction where Renfield's eyes falls, he only finds a big bat strangely moving in the west direction as if it has something to do with the whole incident. In the days that follows, Renfield has fearful shocks with screaming and yelling every now and then, but then he would soon calm down on his own. Dr. Seward wishes if he could get a glimpse of Renfield's mind or the cause of his sudden passion. Lucy Westenra is under constant observation of Dr. Seward. For few days she does good, but then she has a terrible change come at once. Dr. Seward informs his Professor Van Helsing the same through telegram and he soon reaches to meet Lucy. When Dr. Seward and Van Helsing conjointly goes to Lucy, they find her in a worse condition and about to die for sheer want of blood to keep her heart in action. She is ghastly and chalkily pale, with bones of her face standing out prominently. Soon then, Lucy's lover Arthur arrives and gets ready to donate her his blood. Professor Van Helsing starts the transfusion of blood. With a great amount of blood loss, Arthur goes weak, but Lucy is just partially recovered. The process is stopped and Arthur is told that Lucy will be fine and that Arthur can leave to home and take rest. Dr. Seward and Professor Van Helsing notices the red mark on Lucy's throat. First, Dr. Seward thinks that the red spots might be the reason for blood loss but then gives away the thought as that seemed quite impossible to have such a great amount of blood loss from two tiny red spots. Professor Van Helsing asks Dr. Seward to take care of Lucy and never leave her alone for that may be too risky and leaves to Amsterdam. End of part 4.